Go back to Africa. It's 4 words, sharp, cold, and loud enough to pierce through a crowd. Words that don't just hurt, they carry history, weight, and rejection. But this time, they weren't shouted by a white nationalist at a rally. They came from someone who looks just like her. The screen freezes on Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's face. Her eyes are steady, her lips pressed. Then slowly, one eyebrow rises. Just one. "Excuse me, you could hear a pin drop." Was the moment everything stopped online. Flash after flash hits the screen. The U.S. Capitol, soldiers marching in Burkina Faso, civil rights protesters holding signs reading, "I am a man." A black and white photo of Malcolm X pointing at the camera. Then back to Crockett in the U.S. House of Representatives, her fingers gently tapping the desk. This wasn't your usual debate. Not Democrat versus Republican, not left versus right. This was deeper. What happens when a U.S. Congresswoman fires back at the most radical leader in modern Africa? A voiceover rolls in, sharp as thunder. This isn't politics. This is history and identity clashing. Power, truth, culture colliding on a global screen, on Twitter, on YouTube. People weren't just watching, they were choosing sides. Team Troy, Team Crockett, Africa, America, revolution, resistance, pride, pain, betrayal. But what made this moment so unique? Both speakers were black. Both carried real power. Both came from a place of struggle. One was tired of being told they weren't black enough. The other tired of seeing the diaspora forget its roots. This wasn't just a debate. It was the front line of a global identity war. And Jasmine Crockett, she wasn't backing down. Before the fire came, there was a quiet storm. Not about Republicans or Democrats, about something more personal. Who gets to speak for black people? Enter Ibrahim Traoré, bold, always in a zipped-up military jacket. In a continent full of aging leaders clinging to power, Traoré stood out. He led a military takeover in Burkina Faso, but his goals were bigger than his country. He aimed to shake the whole system. Speech after speech, he called out the West. He said France robbed Africa's future. He accused the U.S. of controlling African governments from behind the scenes. He demanded independence, no aid, no begging, no unfair partnerships. Then he looked straight at the camera and said, "African Americans, you're fighting for scraps in a house built to keep you out. If you really want freedom, come back, come home. Fight for something that's truly yours." It didn't sound like an offer. It sounded like a dare. Meanwhile, in Dallas, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett watched the clip. She didn't post, didn't react. She just observed, watched the retweets, the comments. Saw people using her name. Some called her a puppet, blackface working for a white system. Others said she forgot her roots. Some said she never had a link to Africa to begin with, but Crockett's no stranger to criticism. She's been underestimated. Her whole life, as a black woman, as a politician, someone who speaks without softening her message. She's a Democrat who fiercely defends racial justice. Her speeches have gone viral before, but this felt personal, because this time the critique didn't come from the other side. It came from someone who shared her skin but not her story. The clip kept going viral. Traoré was being called. The new Malcolm X people called his words truth bombs, a wake-up call to black America. But for Crockett, it stung. As if the pain, the fight, the legacy of her ancestors stolen from Africa, sold into slavery meant nothing unless she went back to a land she never knew. For many African Americans, go back to Africa is nothing new. It's been used by racists for generations. Now, hearing it from someone like Traoré, it hit differently. Still, Crockett waited. No tweets, no speeches. She just listened and waited for the right moment. That moment came during a congressional Foreign Affairs hearing, a place no one expected this to come up, but Jasmine Crockett brought it in. And when she finally spoke, she didn't just answer. She lit the room. The chamber was still, too still. Paper shuffled. A few glanced at their phones. It felt like the air was waiting. Then she leaned into the mic. "I wasn't planning to respond," she began. "Then I saw the clip." Her voice wasn't raised. "I but it had that tone, that edge. It's the kind you can't ignore. Her hands stayed still, but her words hit like a wave. "You tell me to go back to Africa?" she said. "I was born in Dallas." Dakar, gasps, small but audible. People looked up. One congressman leaned back in his chair. He knew this was about to shift. "My ancestors were dragged here in chains," she continued. "They were taken from Africa, sold, beaten, and forced to build this country. They didn't choose this place, but they survived. They built it brick by brick." She looked around the room. No flinch. "So, no, I won't go back to Africa. This country owes me more than it can ever pay. I won't walk away just because someone in a uniform thinks I'm not black enough." This wasn't just anger. It was grief, strength, pride, all wrapped into one moment, and she didn't stop there. "I respect the struggle in Africa. I do. I understand colonization. I see what it did, what it's still doing, and I respect Ibrahim Traoré's courage. It takes real guts. But don't talk to me about freedom if you've never had to fight for it from inside the beast." Someone tried to cut in. She didn't pause. "You think we're just marching in circles over here? That fighting for our kids to survive, to breathe, to vote, to live that's not real? We've bled on this soil. We've buried our families here. We didn't choose this battlefield, but we're still here, still fighting." The room stayed frozen. Even the usual whispers stopped. Every eye was locked on her. I didn't ask to be American, but I am. And I'm not letting anyone from here or from abroad tell me that my blackness has an expiration date. She closed her folder. "Look directly at the chairman. Traoré says African Americans should come home. I say this is home, and I'll fight for it. Not because it's perfect, but because it's mine." The silence after that wasn't empty. It was heavy, full of thought, surprise, maybe even respect. Clips hit the internet fast. TikToks with subtitles, reaction videos, YouTubers breaking it down, frame dash by dash frame. The line. "I didn't ask to be American, but I am." It became a, quote, a meme, a protest chant. Some said Crockett overreacted, that she missed Traoré's point, that he was trying to build unity, not shame. But others, thousands, said she did what needed to be done. Because when someone tells you to go back where your people were stolen from, they forget something important. Sometimes, those people made a life out of that pain. They're not going anywhere, not without a fight. After Crockett's speech, a bigger conversation sparked. It became more than her and Traoré, more than just two voices. It was two histories, two lives. One difficult question: what does it mean to be black today? On social media, opinions flooded in. Some Africans backed Traoré. They said he was right, that African Americans had been fooled into loving a system built on their pain. That true? Freedom would never come from inside America? The Crockett's pride felt like betrayal. But others stood with her. They said black Americans hadn't forgotten. They were just fighting a different war, one against police brutality, against poverty, against voter suppression. "We didn't ask to be here," one user wrote, "but we survived here. We built something that deserves respect." And that's where the pain lives, in the middle. On one side, Africans healing from colonization, rebuilding without the West. On the other, African Americans, still battling a system that was never built for them, and still being told they're not black enough. It's a wound with no easy name, one that stretches across oceans, generations, and languages. A wound we've ignored too long. Some tried to bridge the gap in the comments. Why are we fighting each other? One Ghanaian American asked, "We're all carrying the same scars." Others said, "We don't have to pick between Africa and America. We are both."